Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I am going to discuss all about my interview experience with Google, how I got a job at Google. So before that, if you don't know me, I am currently a software engineer at Google. So I think I'm the right person to tell you what all is asked in the interviews, how to prepare, what's the format of the interview, what does Google look for in an interview, each and everything. Also, why am I making this video? Because Google is currently hiring for 2024 batches full-time roles, software engineer roles. So do check out the link in the description. And if you're a 2025 graduate, like you will graduate in 2025, then Google is hiring for interns. So all these links will be in the description. Do not forget to apply and apply with a referral. So one small request, before I start the video, please subscribe to my channel because it helps me stay motivated to make videos. And also, there's a lot of interesting content coming up, some technical, some non-technical. So for all that, stay tuned. So without further ado, let us start the video. So first of all, I think the most difficult part of clearing an interview at Google is getting an interview at Google. So how did I get an interview with Google? I was reached out by a Google recruiter. So the reason I think is that on my LinkedIn, I keep my LinkedIn updated. So in that, I had mentioned internship at Flipkart and Microsoft. So I got a message from a Google recruiter that, we are interested in your profile for a software engineer role. So if you are interested, send us your resume. Then I sent my resume, and then she said that, then she called me and she said that, okay, we like your resume, but there's one thing that you should have mentioned, the Flipkart internship was actually mentioned above the Microsoft internship, but I had actually done the Microsoft internship more recently. So she actually gave me this feedback that the resume should be in a, chronological order, like the latest thing should be at the top. So yeah, she was a very sweet recruiter, and she said that, yeah, we like your resume, so will you be interested in interviewing? And honestly, I couldn't believe it. And I was like, definitely. And she said that, okay, so when will you be interested in giving an interview? At that point, I was actually interning with Microsoft, so I did not have a lot of time. Plus, I needed some time to brush up PSA and everything. So I just told her that, give me some time. So I think it was around 20-30 days later, my interview was scheduled. And I forgot about it for the time being. I focused on my internship. After my internship, I had around 10-15 days. And in those days, I started preparing for Google interview. So that's the part of how I got a call. And honestly, I think the thing that helped me and that will help you, if, for a recruiter to actually directly contact you, is that always keep your LinkedIn updated. Like if you have done an internship, mention that, okay, I did an internship here and here. If you have done some, if you've got some good ranks in some contests, if you do CP, definitely mention that. So keep your LinkedIn updated, whatever achievements you have, whatever you learn, keep sharing it on LinkedIn, and that helps a lot. Apart from that, if recruiters don't reach out to you directly, you can definitely apply, like the link given in the description, and apply with a referral because that increases your chances a lot. So now coming to the next part, what does Google look for in an interview? So I know this because the recruiter actually shared some pointers with us that, what all you will be judged upon in your interview. So let me mention those 5 things here. First is your code. How is your code? Is it readable? Is it clean? Are you not reusing some code? Like, is it modular, right? You're trying to make functions and all. So is it well structured? Do you have good understanding of the language chosen? Are you able to translate your ideas into code? What is the readability of your code? So that is one thing that Google tests you. Second thing that Google looks at is DSA, that you understand the data structures well, you understand the time complexities well, you are able to implement properly, your solution is efficient, you are able to think of the edge cases and, analyze the trade-offs, you are able to understand the question, you're able to, give the solution. Third thing that Google looks at is comprehension and communication. So are you able to think out loud? Are you able to comprehend the problem? Like you are able to understand the problem? Are you able to give some, alternate explanations? are you able to communicate what your thoughts are you able to communicate what you're thinking, what your solution is? That is very important. So lastly, the fourth thing that Google looks at is efficacy. That is the ability to work at a good pace, that the ability to judge the complexity of a problem. And lastly, the fifth thing that Google looks at is design, that you're able to create a workable design. You're able to map the solution. You're able to gather information. You do not overcomplicate the code, so the design is good. So these are the things that Google looks for. So as I mentioned, the five things, I'll summarize it once. It's coding, DSA, comprehension and communication, efficacy, and design. So these are the five parameters you'll be judged on. Also, we were clearly told before our interview that we will not be asked anything except DSA and Googleyness. What is Googleyness? I'll tell you in a minute. But we will not be asked about operating systems, computer networks, database management systems. This was clearly told that we will not be asked all this stuff, right? So that is one thing that it's different from other companies in the sense that it does not ask these things. It will only ask for DSA and Googleyness. Coming to the resources I used. So first of all, you need to prepare for DSA. So how do you prepare for DSA? I think there are a lot of sheets available. You can look at Shriver's A to Z, sheet, or if you want Shriver's top 180 questions sheet, which has some top questions that are asked by most companies. And if you revise that, then I think you're good to go. There are some standard questions in each data structure. So if you're able to practice that, you're good to go. Apart from that, something like a Big O cheat sheet. So let me just show it to you. So this is like a Big O cheat sheet is actually a website, bigocheatsheet.com. So she shared this with us. What are the different time complexities and all? What are the different sorting algorithms and everything? So you can just go through it once if you want, right? So this is one thing. Apart from that, I think preparing for DSA, you can, lead code and as I said, Shriver's sheet. Apart from that, if you are not someone who's confident with your interview skills, then you can try out different platforms and try to give mock interviews for those platforms, right? So there are a lot of platforms. There's Topmate, where people take mock interviews, and a lot of other platforms. I'll not take any names, but you can find them and you can try to, if you don't want to use a platform, find a senior and ask them that, please take my mock interviews. That will be very helpful, trust me. Now coming to the interesting part, Googleyness. What is Googleyness and how to prepare for it? So Googleyness is Google's way of seeing if you're culturally fit to be in Google. So they will ask you questions that will test your behavior. So sort of like HR round in other companies, behavioral questions. So this is what Googleyness is. So how to prepare for Googleyness? So what's the best way to prepare for Googleyness? What's a better way to prepare for Googleyness than something that Google has given themselves? So let me share my screen. So this is tips and example general cognitive ability question. So I'll also share the link, paste the link in the description. So this gives you a good idea. This video gives you a very good idea about what are the kinds of questions that can be asked in the Googleyness. So I saw this video and it was helpful. So do check that out. Next, coming to the format of the interviews. So what was the format of the interviews? So for me, there were 2 interviews were scheduled first, both of almost 1 hour, 45 minutes to 1 hour. So in the first one, actually in all the rounds, the format was same. You will be asked one DSA question, and then you can be asked to optimize it and all. And then you will be asked some Googleyness based question. So basically one DSA question with optimized code and one Googleyness question. That was the standard format for all the rounds. So earlier you have 2 rounds scheduled in one day. And then if you clear those 2 rounds, then you have a third round. So I had 3 rounds in my case. And then if you get a good result in all 3 rounds, then you'll be selected. Now coming to the most interesting part of the video, what were the questions that I was asked in my interview? So before I start, there's one thing that I like to tell you, that it's not allowed to actually share your questions outside with anyone else, because those questions are considered to be the intellectual property of Google. So you're not allowed to share those questions anywhere. And I think that's fair, because Google interviews, thought of those questions. But what I can share is the data structure that was asked in those questions. So I will not be sharing the exact questions, but I'll be sharing some hint that will help you to figure out that, what kind of a question that was. So the first question I was asked was actually not the first. I mean, I don't remember the order. So one of the questions I was asked was, there was this whole story, something, 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 and then you had to tell whether it's true or false. So the question basically was to detect a cycle in a graph, right? But they didn't directly tell you. They actually made some that, they had this whole story that there is some situation, and then you have to figure out that, okay, this is a graph problem, and you have to actually store the things in graph. You have to think of what are the edges. So as an adjacency list, I store that. And then you have to detect if there's a cycle, then I think the answer was true. If there was not a cycle, the answer was false. So this basically used DFS, depth first search. So that is one of the questions that I was asked. Second question, coming to DSA, that I was asked was something related to, there were buildings, okay, and you had to tell something related to that. So one way of doing that was that you traverse it in the, from front to back. It was an array of buildings, basically, different heights of the buildings. So if you traverse it from the front to the back, you have to actually, it took n square time, where n is the number of the buildings. Because for each building, you had to see, like, I think what was the next smallest building or something like that. I don't exactly remember. But if you think smartly and if you traverse from back to the front, then you could do that in O of n time. So that is the optimization that was required in that particular case. So this is the second question. Basic array and some, thinking of how to reduce the time complexity. Third question that I was asked was something related to intervals. So we had different intervals for some event. There was a start time, there was an end time, and then you had to tell something. And this question used binary search, basically, right? So using binary search, you have to give the answer. So because if you traverse the intervals, then it'll take a lot of time. But using binary search, the code could be optimized. Also, another important thing to keep in mind is that since I am not someone who's done a lot of competitive programming, I was asked such questions. But I know my friends, some of whom, they are like candidate master or master on code courses. So they were not asked such questions. They were actually asked a little difficult questions. Like one of them was asked something related to a disjoint set. So it's not necessary that you will be asked simple lead code medium type questions. You can also be asked questions that are tougher if you are someone who's practiced CP. So they do look at your resume and they see that, if you are someone, who's done a lot of CP, then they will definitely not ask you simple lead code medium questions because you will be able to do them very fast, right? So that is one thing that the questions asked will be challenging to you. Okay, so that is definitely something they take care of. So yeah, so this is one part that I forgot to record in the original video, so now I'm recording it. So coming to the Googleyness questions that I was asked, I cannot share the exact questions. As I've said before, I was asked 3 questions. But one thing I can tell you is that they are very similar to the HR questions asked in other companies. So like one of the questions I was asked in another company before was something like that, if one of your teammates and you get a task, right, different tasks, but you're both working on the same project and your teammate has not been able to complete that task yet, but you have completed it before deadline. So what will you do in that case? So the answer I gave to this was that the ideal answer is that I'll help him out. But also at the same time, this is not a very practical solution because if I keep helping others all the time, then I will eventually get burnt out, right? So for me, I think the best answer is that, I will try to help him if I don't have any other task as of now, like urgently. And if I have some special idea, if I have some idea about what problem he's facing, if I have, say, worked on it before, then I will definitely try to help him out. So sometimes I will definitely help out others, but not always, because that is not very viable and that will lead to me being burnt out. So I think the key to such Googleyness or HR questions in general is to find an answer that is, first of all, not very fake. It should actually seem real. Secondly, it should be also inclusive, like try to include all the people. Say if you have to make a decision for your team, so say that I'll try to include everyone in the team. So that should be the kind of answers you should give. Then thirdly, you should think of all the cases, like, you should think of that, okay, do I have some other work? If I don't have some other work, then I'll help him out, something like this. So state your assumptions, state different opinions, state different things that, okay, in that case I'll do this, in this case I'll do this. So the key to HR questions in general is being respectful, giving a practical answer, and thinking of different scenarios that can play out. You can have your own answer based on your personality, right? So that's it for my interview experience. So I had 3 rounds in, I think, 2 or 3 days. Like, it was completed, and then for the next 1 month, I did not hear back. I thought that I was rejected, but I also knew that my interviews kind of went well because I was able to answer the questions. So I just, with no hopes, I just emailed my recruiter that, is there some update for me? Then she did not reply for a few days. Like, I think she replied after 10 days. So I had lost hope by then. She said that, I'll call you someday. Then she again called me after, I don't know, some 10, 15 days. So I had again lost hope at that point. And she called me and she said that, that all the hiring committees had similar review. So they gave you a strong hire. And honestly, the way she was speaking at that point, I was not sure if I'll be selected or not, because she was speaking in a very plain voice. Like, there was no emotion in that voice. Okay. But when she mentioned that, you are a strong hire, so congratulations, you have been given an offer. At that time, I was like, okay, thank God. Because the way she was speaking, it was as if she was giving me a bad news. Okay. I don't know why, but I just got that feeling. So yeah, it was a good feeling. And I think I'm super happy to be here. So yeah, that was my Google interview experience. Guys, if you have any questions regarding this, shoot me a DM on LinkedIn or Twitter. I'll try my best to answer. I might not be able to answer sometimes, but I will definitely try my best to answer. I will also link all the resources in the description. If I forget something, please mention in the comments. Any other questions you have, please mention in the comments. What kind of videos you'd like to see, that also you can mention in the comments. And do not forget to subscribe the channel. With that, see you in another video. Hope this one was useful for you.